Recording in progress.
Fantastic. All right, it is Monday, November 14th, 2022. We are here at the Rosemary Recreation Complex for the Park and Rec Commission meeting for tonight. We are short just one member, but we do have a quorum, and going through our meeting agenda. First up that we do is we have hopefully 3 guests joining us from the Needham Commission on Disabilities. Barbara Moss, Karen Walker, and Tatiana Swanson, I think, are joining us via Zoom.
Yes, so we have 2 of them so far. I'm gonna promote them to panelists for this
Great.
conversation, and then we can kick them back and more.
And then-
Karen is also here.
So we're going to turn around and look at them on the screen.
No, the camera could show up whenever you talk.
So we're going to look at that as good.
Yes,
Okay.
can you folks hear us okay?
Hey Stacy, I can hear you okay, and I think you guys can hear us, but we cannot put our camera on. It's fine, but just giving you a heads up.
Hi.
Hello, Barbara.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good
Welcome.
evening.
All right, I think Stacy's trying to do something with the Zoom call, but at least the good thing is we can hear you. If we can't see you, it's not the end of the world.
Okay, Karen, are you here?
I'm here, yes.
Hi. Okay, Karen, do you want to start?
Sure. Sure.
Great.
So thank you for having us, everyone. We are all representatives from the Needham Council on Disabilities. And I believe we're here tonight to talk a little bit about a survey that we were thinking of sending out to our community, essentially mostly parents that have expressed interest to us over the last couple of years to really have more accessible playground space. So as the Needham Council on Disabilities, we receive requests at our 9 yearly meetings for members of the public to come and speak. And one of the themes that has come up repeatedly over the course of the last couple of years is having accessible playground equipment. I think specifically swings and some, other types of equipment. We do collect all of the tickets that come about for handicap parking violations, and we take that money. It's a limited amount of money, but we do have that, and we're able to use that money for different grants in the community. And one of our ideas over the course of the last year was asking the public what sort of accessibility features do they want the most from the playgrounds, and then just seeing if there was possibly any way that a little bit of our funds could cover, one thing. We certainly don't have enough money to fund a playground, but potentially a swing or some other type of feature would be something that we could probably do. So that was the reason that we were interested in putting out a survey. But I believe we're here tonight to talk about the efforts that you already have underway and to see and ensure that we're not duplicating any of them. That makes sense? Anybody have any questions?
It makes plenty of sense, as a matter of fact. I know you probably have very good or open dialogue with Stacy Mulroy, our director. That I know with her and the commission, one of our goals is we would love to redo any and every playground that we can and make them as much accessible as we can. And if you were to ever put a price tag on it, I would say it's unlimited. Like, we never want to put a price tag on it. We wish we had an open checkbook that we could do any and everything to every single playground. But we know we don't have those resources, that any help from the public or any help from the community is always welcomed. But if we do something, we want to make sure that we're doing it right, that we want to make sure that we're having a good effort going in and open communications of which playgrounds we're going to target, what we're going to do with those particular playgrounds. So it's kind of a work in progress every single year that we know just on a time frame, we can't do every one of them at once. So we're going to periodically do them at, every few years. But I mean, any input from the community and the public is always welcome, because we wish we're experts on it, but we want to hear from the people of what they want to see out there and see what we can do about getting that common ground.
Yeah, so I think we're aligned there. I think, one of the things we had talked a lot about this year in our meetings is just making sure that the public feels like they have a closed loop for some of these information requests. So because this, I'm rather new to the commission, but because this request has come up repeatedly in our community, and often every year and, multiple times a year, we wanted to be able to possibly report back and say, here's kind of on the laundry list of wants and needs. And if there was a way to marry it to a timeline, I don't know if that exists for your initiatives, and or say, this is all in the pipeline, things are happening. We heard that this thing is wanted the most. We're going to look at possibly using grant money to, match some of these requests. We recently were able to give a grant to some of the special ed classrooms at Needham High for some sensory equipment. And we have more money in that pool, limited. Like I said, can't do a whole playground, but it's certainly something we could think about doing if there was, something that we could help support within your plans.
Great. And I apologize, I didn't know you were on screen behind us, so we're looking the other way and you're on screen behind us, so I
Oh,
apologize.
I just came on it. Yeah, it just offered.
They just popped on.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
apologize about that. Do any of the other commissioners have any input or anything they'd like to add or collaborate with this group?
Sure. Hi, I'm Cindy Chastain. I think I know Babs, at least, or the three.
Can you guys hear okay?
Yeah.
Didn't think
You
so.
can? Oh, I'm having
Yeah,
a
we
hard
need
time.
to talk.
Oh, all right, let me talk directly to the device, to the output.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about the survey? Because we do struggle with what not necessarily the needs, because I think we know the needs of the community, but we struggle with what the wants of the community are. And whether to do, one piece at each playground as we can afford it, or should we do more at one playground and another playground? And we do, at least I struggle a little bit with understanding what families and parents would like to have at these playgrounds, and what kind of approach we should take. And again, I would defer to our director, who was very interested in this field and has a lot more knowledge than I do.
Yeah, so that's what we were interested in sort of figuring out too, is to understand, like, yes, we agree that like a completely all playgrounds being accessible would be ideal, but we understand the price tag associated with a request like that. So what we were interested in is really keeping it simple. So the survey that we had shared was really 3 to 4 questions and really saying, what is your driving desire in terms of accessibility playground equipment? I mean, we're really interested too in knowing what is that piece that they feel like isn't there. I mean, getting on and off structures, I think with the exception of possibly, Newman may not exist. So we wanted to know that too, and not make it feel so much like a very detailed scientific survey that you would get out of like a quant research company, but more so we as the Commission on Disabilities are helping talk to Parks and Recreation, and we just want some of that feedback from the Needham CPAC group, that is the special ed group, the Needham parents group, and the different elementary school groups, just because we can get in there easily, and from the Needham Facebook group, and really make this kind of an informal, no cost associated, just to try to get some of that data, because we didn't feel like we could answer that question very well as the Commission on Disabilities to respond to what you're saying.
I think to just build on what Karen is saying, throughout the years, we have gotten random, one-off requests for an accessible, swing, or a full, swing that will support a wheelchair, or accessible paths to the swing, which sounds all simple enough, but we have come to learn are pretty intricate as far as infrastructure changes. So we kind of just wanted to sort of take the temperature out again in the community to see what is it that people would like to see in the playgrounds, so that we're sort of catering to those wants and needs if and when a new design is available.
I think it's actually perfect timing. Also, one of our agenda items that we have on our agenda tonight is Greens Field. That I don't know if you've had a chance to drive by there, but we've just actually installed a port in place material that makes it more accessible for all children and all people to be on there. I think it is in the final stage, if not just about done, but that is something that we would love to see at most, if not all of our playgrounds, just because of the accessibility. So if you do have a chance to drive by and the gates are still up, you're more than welcome to look through the gates. Just, we're waiting for the final product to be done, but that is something that we're striving to do at playgrounds.
Mhm. And so I know that there had been like like a capital improvement plan or some sort of plan to start, building more accessibility into the playground. So I think it will be helpful for our commission to understand where we are on that timeline, and if there's anything that we can do to support that.
Sure. Is it okay if I jump in?
Please.
So in 2021, we did a playground assessment of all of our playgrounds, and that's available online. And if you don't have the link, I can certainly send it to you. But it basically itemized it broke our playgrounds into 3 groups. Yep. Group 1 was, oh boy, we need to get rid of that. Group 2 was, okay, there's some things we need to do to maintain it, but it's in generally good shape. And group 3 was, this is great. We don't have a whole lot in group 3, and so we're working to move one at a time. The complete renos every other year is the idea, to completely renovate one of the playgrounds that is in the worst need. So the next up for the commission is the tot lot at Fazio, which hasn't been touched probably in over 25 years. I was out there last week, and it's definitely the priority. So we're actually gonna talk about that later tonight. But the rest of the playgrounds, almost all of them, with the exception of, I think, Newman and Sonita, requested some sort of ADA option. The suggestion was from our contractor. It always goes towards swing. That's always the first thing. I would like to move towards more options. We do not have a completely accessible playground. We have now 4 playgrounds, including greens, that the surfacing is completely accessible. But we don't have a lot of items other than a handful of swings that are accessible. And so the drive for the department and the commission is to make more options at various playgrounds. And that will be part of, as we go through complete renos or maintaining ones or somewhere in between, adding those things. But Taxon, you're right, adding a wheelchair accessible swing is not just plopping it down and walking away. There's a lot of infrastructure that comes along with it, and then the cost, of course. So that is, I think, the nuts and bolts of where we're at. But we do have a priority list of like what playground is coming up next for the full reno, and which playgrounds are getting some repairs and maintenance.
Gotcha.
Is there a way to activate the community on some of those repairs? I know that, the boards are gone now, but those boards sold out really quickly for Greenest Field when you did that a while back. But is there a way to sort of help you get the word out if we need any fundraising to make a truly accessible playground? And I know too, when I had toddlers, the tot lot at DeFazio having the fence, if you have a runner, like that was that made that much better than Perry Park if you had a kid that ran towards the street.
Yeah, I understand that. So I think there'll be opportunities to do some fundraising for some of our playgrounds. I think it's fundraising can always help. It cannot cover everything, and all of the playgrounds, especially that we have to fully renovate, have to go through the capital improvement process. But anytime we can get some fundraising money to offset the money for these accessible items is huge. So with every project, we could use some fundraising help from the community or from your committee, or grants.
Okay. So I think we would just want to have a sense as you get closer to the plans, what would that need be? Okay, so we're going to do DeFazio, we're covering blank and capital. We're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, but here's a feature we would need help on. And then we could see, could we do a grant for some of it? Could we help activate the community with our connections? Because I think it's something that a lot of communities need, right? And you have to drive pretty far to get a truly accessible playground from Needham.
Yeah, that's absolutely possible as we get to the process, whether we go to capital or CPC, as we get further along, we can start to figure out, especially once we hit the design, what those items will cost and how we can help fundraise. Or, like you said, activate the community for those specific items to bring them into Needham.
Okay, so is this like a 2023 timeline for DeFazio? Or, yeah,
So we're, where are we now? We're in FY 23 right now. We're in
This is FY
FY 23 right.
23.
oh,
So we just put in the budget request, so the town has put in the budget request to FinCom and the town management for the FY 24. So DeFazio will come up at the town meeting in May of 23.
got it,
So
okay.
in that budget from the town manager.
Is there any reason, would you want us to help you sort of get some market research within these families that have the need for an accessible playground to get a sense of what they want, or help facilitate even focus groups? Is there any need for us to do something like that?
I think getting some information from the folks in town about what their needs are, like DeFazio, our idea is to most likely keep it a tot lot, so ages 2 to 5, like what are the needs of the 2 to 5-year-olds? As far as accessible features. That could certainly be helpful, but that wouldn't be until like the design phases. So that would be after town meeting,
Okay,
if it passes.
Right. So that, yeah, so that we can insert feedback that we gathered from the community into the design to make sure that some of these, you know, more wanted or wish list features are included.
Right, and especially for not only that, but for the community to understand what those wish list costs are. Some people are like, well, I want this, and then you're like, okay, well, that's $250,000, and they're like, oh, so. Some of those features are pretty expensive. They're 100% worth it, but it just means we have to be prepared for the price tag with those and fundraise or look for grants and things like that.
Great.
Where is the closest fully accessible playground?
I'm past that point, but I believe they just opened one in Newton. There's one out in like the Sudbury area that a mom worked to get, and I believe there's one like in Dedham-ish area, but we can do that research for you. I don't totally know.
I think there's one in Somerville or Cambridge too, that's like universal
The
playground.
universal one is at Spalding Rehab. It's the Thomas Menino Park.
Oh,
It's right on the water there. Sudbury just opened, I think, this summer, right? It was.
The Smile Mass one, yeah.
Yeah,
And I believe there's one going to be opening in Framingham too. Also, that's been under the auspices of Mark Dempsey. He's an asset compliance inspector for the Framingham Parks and Recreation.
Framingham has a very active Commission on Disabilities as well.
anything else that we can do to like help you out? Like, I know you mentioned about a survey. Do you have like a time frame when you're thinking about doing the survey?
Well, we were ready to post it at any time because we're not like compensating anyone. We had written the survey, and then I think I'll defer to Tatiana, but I think we were told to like probably wait and make sure that we had this conversation with you before we got any feedback.
No, I mean, that's great. How long would you leave the, I guess, survey open for? Like a couple of weeks, a month?
Yeah, a couple weeks. We're pushing into the holidays right now, so I don't know if this is the best time. Maybe January might be better, but we'd leave it open for a couple of weeks and then,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Stacy, what do you think? Or I'm sorry, Fred. First,
No, I was just gonna also that. Is there any reason not to get started on these conversations, even in advance of town meeting?
Oh, we should absolutely get started on them, because I can get from our vendors, we can start to look at the broad scopes of costs and what, you know, the people in the community want, then we can try to figure out what the costs are ahead of time. and start to build that into not the design budget necessarily, but certainly the construction budget.
Right, so if they wanted to get started now asking those questions and have those focus groups, why not?
I think that would be great.
I think the only,
The Go ahead, Tatiana.
I think the only concern would be to just think through, what will be the expectation as we get this resolved, to, just to make sure that we keep the community's expectations, true to what we can accomplish. So I think that was the only thing that I heard from town management, like we need to understand what we're going to be doing with the information and how we're going to address it, right? So because if we're asking for feedback from the community, we kind of have to be ready to say, okay, this is when I want to make that happen for you. So we just wanted to make sure that we're working along your timeline for execution so that we can manage those expectations.
Yeah, I think holding off, especially after the holidays, because, you ask people to fill out a survey, they want some sort of response or feedback or update. And so if we can hold off and then in the meantime, meet and discuss what you think we're gonna lean towards, then we can kind of get ahead of that.
Okay, great. We can circulate just the real general survey that we put together. I find that when you want market research in a more informal way, that like 3 to 4 questions is sort of the max to get
Yeah.
response from people. So that's what I had suggested. We just literally used like Google Forms. We made it really simple. It's not any sort of a paid approach. And we were just going to personally post it in some of the communities and groups that we're already active in as parents ourselves in the community to try to get some responses.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy to be a part of those groups or conversations as we go forward with you guys. I'm very passionate about bringing accessibility to the playground, so reach out at any time.
Perfect. We'll just add a question at the end, said, would you be interested in a future focus group? And then we can try to capture like some hot leads for you for next year.
That's a great idea, Karen.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank
Of
you.
course. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
It's weird. You're looking at the owl and they're behind you on the screen.
Yeah.
So.
So, just so everyone knows, we have 2 people in the audience. Lindsay Page is looking for an update on, and she asked a question, I answered it. Update on the Action Park Planning Grant. I just said that it is part of our discussion items later, and there's another person in there, CS I do not know, but just so you all know.
Okay.
Folks in the audience, if you have any questions, please use the question and answer, and we will either answer it live or bring you in if it's a more detailed conversation.
All right, great. Going back to the agenda, we're looking at open forum of public comment. As you mentioned, if anyone has any questions during the time, we will answer as best as we can. There's nobody here live with us, so we'll move on to the chair's updates. As for me, I don't have anything real glaring right now that's sticking out, but I know things will pop up during the agenda. So I think we'll just jump right into the director's report with Stacy.
Great. So the fall events that have already occurred, pumpkin decorating happened in October and it was very successful. Spooky Walk was beyond successful. We had probably close to 600 kids.
Tremendous.
And then all of the adults that go with them wandering around the center of Needham was wonderful. Turkey hunt is coming up this Saturday. That's where we have kids come in and search for turkeys out on the pool deck, which are plastic turkeys, not real ones. And they do a craft, and it's a great quick little event for the younger group. And then actually in-house, we're just working on a flyer now to get a request out for if you have all that leftover Halloween candy that you want to get out of your house. We're looking for people to drop it off here for our gingerbread house decorating event in December. And that will be on 12/17. I believe this is the first time we have done this, and I can tell you from experience of doing it at home, I would much rather do it at somebody else's house. So that is what we're doing in this. The pools have been officially put to bed. The updates have been done, the repairs are done, the covers are on, and all the equipment is away. We do still have the issue of the filter, which we're working on Weston and Sampson, trying to get a date of trying to come in and fix that filter. And how that's going to happen. So at this point, my guess is it's not gonna happen until after the holiday season at the earliest, and maybe even closer to the home.
When it does get scheduled, are they looking at hypothetically a week to fix it? Don't know yet,
They won't know until they get inside.
got it. But if they don't even have a worst case, like, oh my god, it's gonna take 3 months to fix this, or they think,
No, it wouldn't be, it would be more like a month to
Okay.
fix it. Worst case is we have to replace it, which let's not
Yeah.
discuss that. Cause I don't want
let's just talk about fixing it.
to. But that would be worst case, and then would be depending on availability of staff, because as you know, the whole world is short staffed. But. They really are. So we'll, totally, it's all dependent on staff.
Question with the filter, so this is 5 seasons with that filter, is that going to be typical? I know we have other.
No.
issues. No, okay, thank you.
No, it should not be happening. My guess, without being inside of it, is it's sand,
Okay.
from the beach that is causing some issues.
Right.
It's either that or just like a manufacturing malfunction, which we have. no control over. But we won't really know until we get inside. I mean, unfortunately. The plumbed bathrooms have been closed and winterized. We put signs on the doors that literally say, there is no running water. Please don't use this bathroom. The bathroom is closed, because in the past, there are people out there who have keys and still use the bathroom, and then we have an issue. Even though it's closed.
Didn't we talk about putting padlocks on the ones down at Tafazio?
We can't padlock them.
Why not?
How are you?
No,
We'd have to put some kind of mechanism on it. to
Yeah.
unlock it.
Unless you
Right.
padlock the whole building, that'd be weird.
so like, you were thinking, well, we were thinking about closing the bathrooms because they weren't being serviced by the cleaning company. We
We
were,
have to change the locks. We have to change the locks. Right now, they're just closed.
okay,
So that being said, memorial bathrooms are still accessible. Not 24/7, they are open when necessary, and the same with class. Tennis court package, we're still working on that bid.
Each one. Is that actively being worked on? You see any time, any end date to that getting done?
My goal is December 1st. To get that buttoned up.
is it just the language or just like the timing of when we can get it out, or it's just?
Is the work availability.
Yeah.
It comes down to, and because I'm working with DPW and there's a lot of stuff happening over there, their new assistant director started today.
Oh, yes. I heard about
We're still looking for staffing, we're always looking for staffing, we're doing so great so far, and our holiday party for the staff will be on the 28th. There's something I was going to mention, but perhaps it will come up later.
Speaking of staffing, have we posted and we?
That is what I was gonna talk about. We have received 17 applicants for the position. I am away basically the rest of the week, Wednesday through Friday, I'll be in Maine, attending a certificate program. And tomorrow I'll be working from home with a sick child. But Derek will be setting up 11 screening interviews, so 10-minute phone call with me.
Mhm.
Starting after Thanksgiving, week after Thanksgiving, narrowed it down to 11 applicants out of the 17 so far. It is a rolling admission, which means it doesn't close, so people can still apply.
Okay,
And that was done purposefully.
That be Zoom meeting or just a telephone?
The screening will be a telephone. And then whoever makes it through that, then it will be the official first round, and the first round will be on Zoom.
Got it. We are involved in that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure, because I know like in regards to, like regular staffing, like we're not in on that, but with this being an assistant director position, the commission.
You're certainly welcome to be involved in part of the plan.
Love it. Okay. When was our former assistant director's last day? Was it last-
Thursday.
Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Wish him the best of luck and on his new venture. All right, anything else in regards to the director's report or any questions from the commission? All right, now let's go into our homework assignment for our discussion items. I hope everybody was able to do what they needed to do.
I got one.
Who'd you get it from?
I'll give you one guess.
Cindy.
No.
I thought too.
Oh, so it is.
It's an option if you read yes that.
Well, I probably Dina, she's done it.
No meeting was read.
I was afraid. Oh
Wow.
my God, she's an overachiever.
I know, she.
It's making us look bad.
Dana was going to send something and then told me everything was great and
I
I'm.
saw that. I saw that. Great.
Oh,
Should have thought of that.
okay.
I thought it was too complicated. I brought, mine even had a few notes. No, a lot of things, but I got these.
So guys, after the Greens playground pictures in your packet, I have no idea what page it is. It was from Derek. If you search from.
I have like several different
Multiple
multiple documents.
Yeah, a few, of them
It came from Derek.
Daisy said it's a reminder.
I know, yeah. Cindy's free bagging over here. Cindy, looks like you've got a lot of goals there, huh?
You know what, I was feeling pretty good.
I know.
And to top it off, the guy in charge of the trails we just left.
Oh,
So
jeez.
for a little bit of time.
Oh no, we're keeping that one going.
I
So,
would like, so,
So
yeah,
the,
I did have some,
let me know if you found it, okay.
I did feel a little guilty and I actually have a suggestion or two. So
No,
fix
that's,
that,
that is being prepared.
because I did look a little light.
Scroll through the packet again. I know this is in the last packet. I think it's great that you guys put in the months of what we go through, of what you ideally have planned in January, February, all through the year. So that I think kind of helps out running into the goals. I think when we discussed, and Cindy, you can back me up on this, our goals, yes, we want to knock some down, but there's some that are always going to be ongoing. That no matter what, like trash, like resolutions of how we keep the fields clean, that's always going to be on there. We're never going to take that, something like that off.
so I'm sharing online our FY 23 goals and our ongoing goals. That's why I have them side by side, so we can take a little bit easier, and then we can go to the responsibilities page or lack of responsibilities page.
That is on page.
Usually I'm buckling in the weight, but not this year.
Yep. So I don't know how you want to go through this.
No, I mean-
Go commissioner by commissioner, or
I think what we should do is let's just go with our FY 23 goals first, because I mean, there's only 4 of them on the chart right now. I think as a commission, we should look at it to say, hey, are these 4 good? Do we need to add more? Do we need to just work on the 4 that we have? Because the last thing we want to do is overwhelm ourselves and put too much on our plate. So I think what we should do is look at the 4 that we have for FY 23 and think if we need to keep them as is, tweak them a little bit, maybe add something. I mean, this is an open discussion, so please feel free to speak in regards to all of them or each individually. Stacy.
so the first goal, I believe much of it will be worked on by the active recreation group that is being formed, so that's a lot of them. Also, nobody told me how many spelling mistakes were in this thing. I'm so sorry. But I was just looking at that one. And number 2, we should literally just revitalized the steward program, but it is in the very beginning kickoff stages, so I think that should probably stay until it gets some like real legs.
No, you're right. I mean, number 3, I think we're also, I mean, if you look further through the packet, there's some information on there, I think like the lighting policy or the joint policy we have for Memorial Park. Not that we're have to tweak it, but I mean, that probably hasn't been touched since.
Because we did it.
Yeah, exactly, the first time, so there might be some updates that we need to do on there, So I think that is something that might even fall into both categories of FY 23 of kind of streamlining it. But also things that as an ongoing thing of reviewing our policies every single year, see, hey, did we miss something here? Do we need to add or delete, items like that?
Yeah, I mean, for instance, on the lighting policy, there's very little about Claxton's lights. So I think that needs to be, and they will be upgraded, so then it'll become just part of the lighting policy, but right now it's totally different process than the other fields.
Right.
We also need to be deciding on, cloud lighting policy, right? So we need to,
If and when,
yeah.
Yes.
So having a
yes,
final version, an updated version would be helpful for determining new replacements.
yes, absolutely.
Mr. Chair, you looking for input?
I am looking for input, please.
So it struck me that under our FY 23 goals, we don't mention our ongoing, just beginning capital projects, the high school tennis courts, Claxton and Cloud, and I feel like those should be listed as goals somehow. Those capital projects are pretty big, and they're a big commitment to the commission, and especially for our department. I think they need to be, I don't know if they can be separately listed, each project or just capital projects, but it felt like capital was missing from our goals and those projects in particular.
I would even bump that as the first one on there, if you're the number of them. Because I mean, we're always gonna be reviewing that. That is something that we're working on for this calendar year, that of the goals. So I would even strike that as number one. And then move everything down.
Would you call it as one, would you call it capital project?
I would call it capital projects and then like in parentheses, what those particular projects are. I don't think we need to list each individual one as a goal, but just capital projects and what those capital projects are.
No, I agree. I do think that for, like, some of them will be, for FY 23, for instance, will be completing the design phase. And then in FY 24, we'll be completing the construction phase. So I think we should be specific on the goals relative to the project.
I agree, so whether that's in parentheses,
Yep.
to the project, we know it's.
But I don't think we need to do like 7 different projects. You'd be like capital and then itemize, tennis courts design, DeFazio design, the cloud construction, all the way down.
I would also point out under the ongoing goals is some repetition, like number 6 and
Yep.
number 7, right, were already listed.
Well, that's because that was like cutting and pasting. There.
So 4 through 7. God, looks like we had a bunch.
Oh, yeah, because I didn't know where you wanted the evaluate the needs and location for restrooms. One year, it was a very prominent part of our conversation, and another year, it's more ongoing, right? So I didn't, that's why it's in both, that's why that one is in both places, that was actually not. The other ones were.
Right, no, I thought you could just say that one would be number 6, right? Get rid of 6.
So you find it, you think it's more of an ongoing process as the needs of the community change?
It's kind of like, feels like we need them out in the field. To me, there's lots of question around. I feel like we've vetted that and determined where they're needed and.
I think we need them wherever we can afford to put them, so
Right.
whatever the budget would hold is.
Okay, I would agree if you're talking porta potties. But if you're
Yes, oh, yeah, no,
talking
you're talking-
home bathrooms, then so
I thought should fail.
That's
I've
good
been
too.
willing to.
I am in love with that idea.
I think the
Of the
commission, took their recommendation, because I think you recommended it to us. I think we took you, not just took you seriously, we think it was a great recommendation. And I think that we back you up, at least 3 of us. Fred was probably not here for those discussions, I don't, or maybe you were, but, the Longhorns, there's too much money and too much.
Yeah.
And I think that falls, if we were to create a new complex somewhere, like a Cricket, for some reason, was,
Right,
we're able to renovate that building, we're able to create something larger that kind of would go outside the scope of what we would.
absolutely. That would be part of the building project, like,
Mhm.
do we want to put accessible bathrooms on the outside of the building, like homework type thing?
But I can't imagine that we need a portable toilet. I don't know.
No.
That's a free, like a free
Yeah.
thing, I feel like that's just.
Kind of like what we did in middle school.
Well, that seemed like a really great idea.
And what did you say, Mills?
Yeah, we did a bill, some freestanding.
Well, because, you know, it was approved by town meeting so many years ago, we thought it was a good idea way back then. But I think the question is, are there any parks where we think we need those, because we don't have any in the entire park. We don't need a.
We can't afford to put them in every single facility. I have been putting them where
The most.
the need has been brought to my attention, and then some that are just obvious. Right now, it's DeFazio, Greens, and Newman. I think in the spring, that number will double, if not more, as far as facilities, because we'll certainly put one out at Walker Gordon and probably Harry, and that
do Avery.
Avery is really difficult because of,
We couldn't find a spot ever.
The area that's, yeah.
because of the location of the neighbors.
And it might just be something, given how we have the monthly kind of
Yeah.
list of
calendar.
what happened, have that included as one of the items that we talk about, like February going into the springtime, like, I don't know if we need to necessarily be a goal. It's something that we discuss, don't use it like twice a year to discuss.
Something that we should do it like
fall.
February and
Yeah.
probably July.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah,
To
you need to
discuss
think about the
fall.
budget cycle, right? Because again, I would put them as many places as we think are necessary and you can afford. It's a, you know, No,
Have we been getting good, bad, or different feedback about the ones we currently have out there?
The only feedback I have gotten so far is like, oh, when are you guys taking these away? Because it's winter. And so now now the fields are gonna start to be closed, so now we're gonna start taking them away.
First, they're falling out, they're taking out.
Oh, did you want to pick out or there's?
Who's they?
Like, there's some residents, there are people that want them taken out, now the fields are not being used, they're typically neighbors, which is reasonable.
Yeah.
But I also think this is the time of year we can start pulling them out because we don't have the need. It's cold,
Yep.
you don't want them to get frozen to the ground,
You want-
and we just don't have that much usage out there that it necessitates.
We'll go with that.
All right, so I put that on the calendar and pulled it off the goals. As just in the discussion item.
Yes, of
Not
course.
really for the.
Back to goals.
I think similar to the way that we're handling the capital improvement plans or plans for next year, including something for the playgrounds. They do need to continuing to, be very clear about what we're focusing on each year. So I think we should have the name of the playground and what phase we're in, so whether it's design. And if we are interested in fundraising for anything with that would involve.
So would you suggest that to be an ongoing goal, Sean, because it's gonna change and be? I mean, I guess it would actually be both, right?
Yeah.
Because it would be part of the capital and it would be part of. The ongoing goals.
So it's all, yeah, it's just like capital projects that you have capital projects we're due every year, but then we get specific in those years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually did talk to Katie King about this, in my free time, I was considering coming up with a playground newsletter to talk about the different playgrounds and highlight where we're doing projects or updates or just basic maintenance so that the community knows about it. Not surprising, I have not had time for that, but it is something that I want to do, even if it's just a web page, another page on our website.
yeah.
Because I think that's,
I think community newsletters,
well, it'd be quarterly, not like
yeah,
weekly.
I mean, you can do it, obviously, we can discourage that, but I sure would encourage you to take that on.
Can I jump in on that? I think that's a great idea, and the perfect time to start doing that would be going into the second quarter around town meeting. Because people are gonna ask, what do we do with the 25K that we've got allotted from last town meeting? That I think we have a newsletter that goes out around that time. It will answer the question before it gets asked, and you're going into the springtime where you think people are gonna start going back to the playgrounds. I know they're open year round, but you're gonna get more.
No, they're not.
Excuse me, they're not open year round. So in the springtime, when they start going back, that newsletter comes out. I think it'd be perfect time.
They're not open your.
The department recommends that children do not use the playgrounds during the cold, icy, wet months because the playground equipment is very slippery and it is not safe. And other than the playgrounds with the rubberized poured in place, those playgrounds with mulch or turf or whatever freeze. And so it is like landing on cement. So we recommend as a department that children not use them. That being said, of course, they are used and
We don't officially lock.
we don't lock any of them.
And that's a change. That's Stacy's recommendation of that director when she came on. We never did that. We never heard that. I mean, as a commission, we didn't hear that, but that's Stacy's recommendation. Which we respect, but again, we don't.
It is not my recommendation,
But we don't officially close them.
but it is a safety concern and, you know, we do recommend to the schools that if they are gonna be out there, that they have more eyes on the kids. And check the playgrounds for, especially when there's metal involved for the iciness.
Who didn't bring their kids there on a reasonable day? That's what else can we do?
Well, if they brought them out last Saturday when it was 75 degrees outside, I think it would be perfect.
Mhm.
All right, any other discussion, questions in regards to our FY 23 goals or ongoing goals?
You want me to read yours? Or go through the ones that I
If you
think are
could,
good?
please go through the 23 and then the ongoing.
We have some addition, suggestions.
Which are,
I'm trying to figure out what's more like a staff level and what's like a goal, but one of the ones that was suggested is have an interactive map of the places that Park and Rec oversees, which I think we could also include select board overseas, conservation overseas. And then somebody could click on the link and see a picture of the space in real time, not through Google Earth. So they can see what amenities we have. And that can be updated on a regular basis. Now, I know the GIS has the coordinates and it can tell you who owns what land, but it's not, just picture friendly and fun to look at. It's not easy to navigate, but there is something, so I do like that suggestion.
But what I was thinking there too, is that if you click on it and then you have the list of like. This is like historical, like, this is when it was built, this is when it was last meeting, this is if there's anything that we're planning to do to it, like what that is. So people are like, this playground, wow, you know, like, oh, they're planning to do X, Y, to it, so then, yeah, like you were saying.
Next was a place for, we post all the field reservations, so the public can see when there are spaces available. The answer is there isn't any right now,
Space.
but we are working on them.
So the public
Because
can-
of the blanket permitting, there's literally no space at
Yeah.
any of the playgrounds unless you consider 10 to 2, Monday to Friday during the school year. A space, then yes, we have plenty, as long as it's not attached to a school.
Do you think there is a want for that, a desire for that? I mean, that's an interesting
Yes.
thing, right? Because I figured about
Yeah.
that. Sometimes I have wondered, like, when you has that permit,
Yeah.
it's so difficult for me to find that, and I don't think that,
I
so.
would love it because the amount of times I drive by a field and it's empty and I know it's permanent. It makes my
Yeah.
skin crawl because I don't know what could have been there. Could Park and Rec be running something? Could another community be running something? The Girl Scouts be using it for something? But it's just constantly permanent.
I don't mind that when it's down to the grass, because if you get, grass can maybe grow today. But on the artificial fields, I definitely see that.
And my thinking there too is that. If it's posted publicly, one, people would have access to know, like, okay, if I wanted to have an event, there's this 15-minute break right here. in town. But also, so that when people are like. I want to know why soccer has the fields or whatever sport has the fields, like. It also kind of naturally encourages the community to get involved in that conversation and take the pressure off of. Perhaps us to say who gets the fields when, like if they're kind of self-regulated, it helps to have it very publicly.
Yep.
Posted.
Absolutely.
Great.
Publicity, more publicity for the department and what we do. I think that's gonna be new AD's job.
It's still, have that be one of our goals. That's interesting.
I mean, I don't know, internally. Even with a full staff, it's hard to find time, like our website page isn't updated, even close.
Right. Although that probably sounds more departmental than commission, right? I don't know that we play much of a role there, but I don't know.
Feasibility study. Like a more comprehensive feasibility study.
Or. What?
Well, it was what I kind of originally mentioned, but then because of the timeline for the action part wasn't gonna work. But the idea that we have so many projects listed out for so many years, that it would make sense to say, let's do one study and examine all of our options for all of these projects, and it cuts down on, again, just cost. If you have one feasibility study versus 7, it's gonna be cheaper, even if that one is more expensive, overall, it's gonna be cheaper. And then the timeline for everything shifts significantly, because then you don't have that in, you know,
Or if you miss like a cycle, like, oh, we couldn't fit it in 23, we're gonna have to fit it in 24,
yeah.
and then delays the process.
So just an overall examination of what we, again, what we oversee, what we want to do with it eventually, and pulling it together with one plan to then go and say, let we want to look at these 6 spaces for the following projects. But again, like, I think we'll get the best deal when we go then to do those projects as well.
I like it. What else you got?
That's it,
Okay,
thank you. First one's more staff.
I can't remember. Well, I was like, I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but.
Oh, good ideas though, some of them for us. Most of them just stays. I like the publicity though. I do like the publicity. I do that.
now looking through, like, did we see any repetition in regards to the select board goals? I know there are probably some common threads that are in there, but there's nothing like, oh, they're going on this route, and we're going on that route. Like, there was nothing of discrepancy of different ways, but I mean, I think there's some common items that were in there. And we have to work with them anyways.
Think, litter
Mhm.
is something that we should either keep as an ongoing goal.
Yes.
Or, you know, specific, right now, we have the first, I mean, Moon's been here a couple of weeks now. But I think one person's not gonna fix the litter problem that we have throughout the town, and much of it is on our fields and parks. So I think,
He can help us identify what's causing the problem. I don't think he can fix it, and that's not what we expect him to do, but.
right,
Maybe he can identify, we would want to see where it happens, when it happens, and blah, blah, blah. Maybe we can address it. Is it the middle school, is it the high school, is it the half days, is it the community alarm?
well, and I know I talked to the DPW last week about this, but she wants to bring back, the conversation about no barrels versus a lot of barrels. And what works better, because while we didn't do the no barrel. Because it was supposed to be green, but then green became a common, so we didn't put 0 barrels. We did put multiple barrels at Memorial, and it did not help. And so I know that she has requested at some point in early January to, or mid-January, to come to one of our meetings to talk about, like, okay, what are the next steps about this?
So she would like to embark on a no barrel.
I don't know if that's it, or we're just trying to, you know, collaborate on what other options are there.
Well, they'll have to say, Bill, just struggling and figure out how to get them.
Okay, anything else we want to add, edit, or change on the FY 23 goals or the ongoing goals?
The only thing, Mr. Chair, that I feel is not addressed here, maybe it's because there aren't no problems, but the town forest, which is a huge piece of property under a jurisdiction, maybe there's no problems here, and that's great. It's just not mentioned at all, other than on the park and recreation property. I also think we don't have anything talking about fields. Do we feel our fields are sufficient, that they're in good enough shape, that we have enough fields, that we have the right configuration, and maybe we do, those are just two big areas that are under our jurisdiction.
I think in regards to like, we're always looking for more field space, always looking for more fields, but I think. At one of our meetings, didn't we kind of let Eddie go with the ball on that one? Like, he's the one that determines. Hey, I'm gonna oversee this parcel of land, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, you know, as in regards to the ongoing maintenance. Of the land, and then he would bring up any big issues like, hey, Harry. There's a sinkhole now happening, we need to do something about that, so I think we kind of let him go with that, but. In regards to like improvements, it's.
Maintenance, certainly, I think Eddie and I talked about doing something similar with the fields that we did for the playgrounds and having a field assessment of like, what's the good, bad, and the ugly? And what are the big runners, what can we do to bring the mid-ranges back up, and what can we do maintenance on the ones that are great? To keep them great. So I think that's a conversation that Ed and I have had, it didn't go into FY 24, but I think it is. Pretty soon on the horizon to have that conversation. What I would like to consider for one of our goals, and I don't know how to do this, I haven't gotten that far. But do we have field equity in Needham? And this came up because Claxton's renovation of turning McLeod, which didn't work, and then we turned McLeod into a softball field, is like, do we have equity? Do we have the right amount of rectangle fields, the right amount of diamonds? Do we have enough fields that, you know, serve both all genders, and not, is it more male heavy, is it more female heavy? Like, what is their field equity in Needham, similar to, is there playground equity when it comes to ability? There's no, but we're working towards it, and so I don't know necessarily how to figure that out, other than hiring an outside consultant, which I don't necessarily want to do, but.
Looking overall, do we have the right configuration of fields, right? So that was looked at when they did the building things, but in 2007.
Right.
So.
And maybe
designs
that's
with it.
part of the, right, and maybe that's part of the assessment, not just like, what's the good, bad, and the ugly, but what are our needs?
Right,
And are we serving all of the people of Needham as equitably as possible? Not equally, but as equitably as possible.
right, I mean. You know, do we need another football field? We have one football field, right, so. The whole group. It doesn't get served, and we heard about the gender equity when we had the Claxton project, right?
And there are certain times a year where we could use 2 more tracks instead of 1, that's for sure, but. You know, so are we serving the population correctly? Are we serving the user groups? Like, what is out there? And like I said, I'm not sure how to attain that goal.
So do you look at the sports that we have that are played in town, and you look at the age, and the ages of children that we have, and.
I think so, because, you know, baseball, softball is one of the very, like, definitive ones to separate, like, what's baseball, what's softball, because there's some crossover in the younger levels, but as they get older, they have to use very different fields. But then there's so many rectangle sports, but do we have enough space for field hockey, girls lacrosse, boys lacrosse? Frisbee, co-ed, what's coming down the pipeline? People want cricket back. Rugby is a big one that's coming up.
We certainly
Flag
have always
football.
responded to new groups and new sports that come along and tried to make room for them, as best we can. Ultimate Christie, right, that was.
Right, but we're probably at the point where if we get a new, say, rugby league wants to come in, we're gonna minimize somebody else's space,
Right,
because there's no, you know, there's no specific, this is this field, this is that field, so. It was just a thought. I've been
so we need to
mulling
look
over.
at field space and field configurations.
Mhm.
I think what we're also looking at, I really like this idea, is that we're just talking about the authorized users right now and the permanent users. I know there's one particular group that uses fields whenever they can get on, and we've been trying to get them as an authorized group, but they don't do it, is the cricket players. That they jump on a field, whatever there is, because they have technically no place to play, and then they jump on a field, or they jump on something or other. That maybe that's one of the needs of, I'm not saying we need to do it right away, but look at that as part of the,
Have
You
they
know,
asked us?
say what?
Have they asked us for space? No.
They reached out to
Okay.
me once.
I mean, if they want to use space, we'll do our, if it's a medium phase group.
Years ago, they were at the indoor gym space summit. And I took one of the gentlemen aside, I'm like, we'll work with you, you know,
Right.
you have to come to us.
Right.
And they're paying to us.
Right,
So-
so I mean, we can't, honestly, you know, I would not be in favor of designing any space for them.
No, I'm just saying, but like looking at, as Stacy was saying, like, what are our
What
needs
much do
here?
we-
What are we looking
Right.
at for space? Like, do we have too much of one and not enough of another? And the other biggest thing is that, yes, if we can get multi-use out of a certain field, we're gonna add to not just one category, as many categories as we can, so. Oh, I like that. That's
Yeah.
very
I don't
creative.
know how to write that goal.
I just will feel that for me,
Yeah,
for now. I'll mull it over.
I think it's more than that.
It is, it is.
And then the town board, so I will tell you, to me, this is so interesting, because for many years, our goals always revolved around working with the sports groups, working with this group, that group, you know, and it was all around youth sports, and I think because we don't have that in our goals right now, it's because it's not a big problem. Right, so kudos to the department, right, that that's not the issue that it was for using use. It's great, and the town forest, no problems, right, it just.
No issues.
It's still there.
One of the
Still
things that came up
Well-
that surprised me, you know, how many years in, and this is gonna happen regularly, but. Somebody from the scouts said, are we allowed to blah, blah, blah on our land, or if we wanna sell our land, does the town have first right of refusal? And I was like, do the scouts own land? The scouts own land.
Yeah.
It's true that they do.
They
Yeah,
do,
they do.
right, it's within the town.
It's in the
forest.
town forest, there's like some weird chunk, but I was like, oh, good to know.
Can they, actually, I don't know, can they sell it? That's an interesting question.
It died, the
is.
whole conversation
Yeah.
died out, the person
Uh-huh.
wasn't interested, but it is a conversation that I can bring up with Kate, like, I don't know, I would assume that was part of the process. It's in the middle of town, but I don't know.
I don't know, but they
Probably
do. own-
gifted to them years ago. I mean,
I don't know, I don't actually know.
Anyone work for them to sell it. Like someone.
Is it 'cause there's no access?
It's in the middle of the town.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's no access. It's just like a chunk.
Yeah.
There's a structure, I want to say there's a tower too or something like that.
The town.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, so you have some updates that you're gonna put on for goals
Here's
and
some updates, I'm gonna write that they're FY 24 goals, because we're currently in 23, so I will update that. I'll change the spelling mistakes, thanks for catching that, Derek.
possible. That's nice.
And then I did move around and update the responsibilities and liaison.
How much did you bribe her, Cindy?
That's what came out the last meeting.
Until it was written down here, I was like, wow. I do think that the chair and the vice chair should be listed first, so that it's not as obvious that I don't have anything under my name.
I did it alphabetically, but if you
Oh.
like that, I can do that too.
In the past, we've always done like chair, vice chair.
Yes, we have, and poor Fred, the last one, we gave her everything.
Took it all.
He took it all.
But some of them are split, like the representatives of the active recreation group, both you and Michelle have that one.
I mean, I'm happy to take it. I don't know, Chris, or let's see who's got Board of Health. I don't know that that's any kind of thing, but Michelle, I'm happy to take that one.
And sure.
She's like,
You know, I,
Yeah.
I'm kind of
I
grasping
have
this.
enough, but yeah, I know.
what's gonna be that they're in the same building here?
I also wonder if there's additional groups that we should.
I'm sure there are,
Adding. Yeah, that
like
would
the
be a different-
ADA people just met with us.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Very tangentially work with them, but they should be, like, we should probably be working with them much more, especially on playgrounds. and fields.
Closely with the CPAC group, do they? work closely?
Do they?
Yeah,
They
they
do.
do, yeah, okay.
And CPAC reaches out to me, like, regularly, and I reach out to them as well, so.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to take, you know, whatever you want to move up to under my name.
I think the Board of Health was specifically for the vice chair.
Got it, okay.
I think that was the conversation we had last week. It can change certainly. I don't know if there's something else, but we can discuss ADA.
What's that, I think, like, Board of Health?
No, I have no problem. I'm happy to keep order. I'm strong.
I know the plan.
Yeah, I'm open to,
Okay. Well, and I'll talk to Tatiana, who's liaison to the ADA commission. And see if. Staff liaison, if. They would be interested in having liaison.
So Fred, you have the school committee, which again, I don't think there is. That we interact with, I don't think that quite honestly.
Unless it comes down to playgrounds.
Right, and then, yeah, recreation, you, I mean, it's a big condition of companies, anyway, I'm open to it.
Perfect. All right, jump back to the agenda here. Where we were.
Good job, everybody. I think Fred got it from us.
Fred gets a gold star for the day.
Thank you, Laura.
All right, so on discussion items, we just cranked out commission goals. Field fees and field summit.
I have nothing.
You have nothing for. Did we narrow down a time? January? For the field summit? Because we technically only have one meeting in December, I think.
Yeah.
So I think we're targeting January.
I'm gonna January, right?
Okay,
I will, that is on my. No, but really to-do list,
really the real to-do list.
not the to-do list. And I'll work on some field tweet suggestions as well.
Okay,
I think the main thing with Bill Summit is to make sure we let the groups know, far in advance, that they can set a representative in one of those. Also that we have some good agenda items too. And Eddie, it's helpful to have Eddie come to that.
Yeah, Eddie and Wu will be there as well.
perfect. Capital projects, do we have any updates finance wise or what the town is thinking?
We do.
And what are they
Could you
thinking?
share with us?
Yeah, would you like to?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, would you like to tell us?
The one, basically the one, they had very few questions about the actual budget. I need to make some tweaks, you know, I had the right number here and the wrong number here, but essentially the right information. So I need to make some tweaks and send that over. I just got the reminder to do that. The other thing was they are suggesting that we take the Phaseo to CPC. So I'm going to.
Say that again.
The Phaseo tot lot to CPC,
Okay,
apply for CPC. budget.
what about the other two that we have on the docket being McLeod and
I didn't have too many questions about, I mean, there isn't like.
are they saying town budget? Or are they talking CPC or is to phase it the only thing going CPC?
The only thing that was suggested so far to go to CPC was the top lot.
Really? Like that. Okay.
Other than that, I just had some basic. Why do you need this? Why do you need that? That kind of thing. It's the very first meeting of the budget, so it's. Finance department, one person or a couple of representatives from FinCom, but our representatives were not there.
Oh, okay.
Who is our representative? Is it not Tom anymore?
It's not Tom, it is
Carol.
Carly,
Oh,
the new person,
I don't know who that is. Okay.
and.
Ooh,
Herman.
Somebody whose name I totally.
oh, it was the kid with the guy with the glasses, not,
Brad,
Oh, yeah, you know, we want actually, yeah.
might want to get those names. We'll get them in there. And I think I saw from.
Josh, I think it is Josh.
I'm thinking of Josh, yes, I'm thinking of Josh. So, be good to get in their ear. I think I saw in a message that Dina is being sworn in this week by Teddy for CPC because she's attending the meeting this Wednesday.
excellent.
Do you see any issue with us having the application in prior to December 1st for Tavasio?
No, I did want to discuss, while we're on CPC, Peter has reached out to me about our priority list that. He brought to us last, whatever, when he came, that I need to work on. Is the priority list that we worked on prior, like a couple of weeks ago, our priority list for CPC? Is if we have a different CPC priority list, what am I gathering to give to him? And is this a conversation you'd like to have? I need to get it to him as soon as possible. I can put something out to you and say, is this what you're thinking? And then you can respond by not reply all, and we can go from there. If that's easiest,
What did we have on our prior list, like
priority.
priorities? Like, I know before, if we were going down the route of McLeod and Claxton, that was going to be priority, but if that's going under the town budget. Those would come off the list, and that would now bump to Fazio. And what the tennis courts, like, what did we have?
We had this. This is very specific to playgrounds and not everything. We did not pull everything in, but this is the thing that we worked off of. I sent to you. That was good. But this is our playground priority list, not our overall priority list.
And they're requesting for just this coming budget cycle or for the next 5 years?
5 years.
Okay.
Because I was looking to see if there's anything else. There's not.
Would you like to have this to come prior to this Wednesday meeting?
In 2 days?
Yeah,
No, I'll be
No.
in Maine.
oh, yes, you do, okay.
Can you back up? So I'm confused. What is that? Who's looking for what? I'm kind of confused. I thought we had a list of things that we were submitting for CPC funding.
That wasn't the question.
Okay, so what is the question? Okay, then I'm confused.
Do you want to deal with it, or you want to take a stab at it, Stacy?
My other is confused.
No, so I think what,
Pulling up
I think
PUD.
what CPC is looking for is that. They know what's coming on the docket for this year, but they're looking out for the next 5 years, because you gotta think there are other groups like community housing. That are gonna be putting up maybe some big ticket numbers over the next 5 years. That they wanna know what we have in the pipeline and maybe what historic has in the pipeline, so they get. Kind of a gist of like, all right, we're gonna have this much money to play with every year for the next 5 years. How is it gonna be allotted? Like, they don't wanna get surprised in year 3 to be like, oh, Park and Rec came out of nowhere with a $4 million request for a new playground. They wanna know what's on the horizon for, say, the next 5 years
So,
from each CPC group, if I can
okay,
word it that way.
so maybe I'm missing the point, but isn't it as simple as the capital plan? And our projects that are on the capital plan, and any one of those that would qualify for CPC funding? I would recommend we ask for CPC funding. And I can say now that they all qualify, but isn't that what we've done? Am I right?
Yes.
So I just forwarded the email to the commission with Peter's request. So that you can see it, but
You know what I'm saying? Like, if we just look at the capital plan, isn't that?
I think you might even want to get a little like, let's use the tennis courts, for instance, the high school tennis courts. Is that something that we would love to see in 2024, we're really gonna push for 2024, or are we looking to say, oh, we could do it in 25, or we could even do it in 26? Like, I think they want to know, like, how.
Right, we haven't.
Right, so, and that's what I'm saying, like, if we go by what our capital project plans are by the years. Those years that we want to do it, we're not just putting it there as a placeholder, we're doing it as 2024, we're doing this, 2025, we're doing this, and that is in our capital plan.
So isn't that what we want to give them?
I would assume that
I
would
mean,
be,
is it more than that? Because I honestly, I think happening. Right, we worked on the capital plan, and that's all I have, but
Right.
maybe
I think they're
And
also
do-
looking at, this is the thing that he sent us, one of the documents that he sent us, but to look at our goals that we've had in the past, and see if they still hold true.
And yes, with
Most of them do.
saying yes, right? I don't, if there's a canoe launch in there, I might say, cross that out. But that was pretty quick for me to actually read through it, but I was scanning it. I should-
Yeah, there was one.
Quick reader.
It was increased recreational uses of the Charles River, but there was no.
Right, I would be surprised if any of these
Yeah.
have gone away. Maybe there would be some slight changes in wording if you went through, it, but I don't.
I haven't looked at wording, but I do want to, especially because I have found in many of our documents, the use of pronouns need to be updated.
Okay, so we probably get really take our pronouns, but if we were to look at let me just say, no offense, the substance of this.
So this is what they want us to review and revise as needed.
He wants us to go into like these numbers. That one, not really. I mean, doesn't he just? I would be surprised if this is changed, because these are big descriptions,
Like,
right?
that's
So,
what-
and
It's
it's
definitely a
definitely,
picture.
this is a big picture.
I don't know if we have one key recreation goal, because I mean, unless he's looking for us to be more specific, because obviously that is not one.
One key recreation goal, just sort of.
Reserve.
I mean, I guess it, obviously we want to give it a final reading and not blow it off. I'm not suggesting that, but I think.
So I forwarded you his request. I will look at this. And see if there's any language that needs to be updated or if anything we need to add. I, at first glance, didn't think there was a whole lot, but it is. Ultimately your decision, so.
Right, and we only the courtesy to take this seriously.
I mean, the one thing that I would like to add is there's nothing in here about accessibility. There's no ADA. On our goals,
Okay,
and so that would be
right,
one
that
thing
would-
that
that would be
I would
really
like to add, and especially CPC for the things that are.
Sure.
Available, so.
Does CPC cover accessibility projects? Maybe that would be great.
Mhm.
Certainly.
All right, so we can take a look at this and hopefully at the next meeting on the 28th, have an update or ideas that we can share. Alrighty. Anything else in regards to CPC? Okay, none. Playgrounds and facilities.
You guys want to know what's going on, Green?
We would love to know what's going on.
So, the port in place is finished.
No issues.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh. Okay.
There's no real issues. We did have more than expected people using the playground unauthorized by jumping the fence or Caldo left one day and took their lock with them before we had a chance to put a lock on it. So, but the port in place is okay. I mean,
It
that-
didn't ruin the
Didn't
process.
ruin the process. Thankfully. But I may have lost my mind. The next thing that we want to consider is. Outside of the port in place, instead of putting mulch back, which would just rub up against there, we are seeding it and putting grass, even though I know grass is not gonna be the most plush. There, it's better than having the mulch ruin the rubber. But in order for that to grow, we can't necessarily have people running, so. The public is asking when we're gonna open it. Facilities is suggesting we keep it closed until the spring. Obviously, this is. A conversation we need to have. I see both sides of it, both as a professional and as a parent. I think it'd be hard to keep it closed until the spring. But I don't know what we can do to keep the people occupied, considering we couldn't keep them out of the playground.
Have they planted grass already?
Yeah,
They've seeded it.
Where is it, like in the front, on the side? So, and there's no way to section off the front where the
Well,
grass is.
sure, we can put up caution tape, but have you driven by Greens? Did you see all the closed signs and
Yep.
caution tape everywhere?
It's
And
still-
we still had people inside? So. I mean, it's not gonna stop people from running on the dirt. So it's just a matter of like,
Please keep on.
our expectations are in the spring. We're not gonna have grass there. We'll have mud.
We could sod, no,
We could.
but it's significantly more of any irrigation.
You don't have irrigation.
So.
No, we don't have irrigation, but you could sod in this time of year, because if it snows, and snow creates a barrier of heat, and then it will grow.
Yeah.
However, there is a cost that is not part of the project for sod.
Is it exponentially higher? I know sod is typically more expensive, but I don't have a sense for how big that space is and therefore how much more.
I wouldn't know exponentially right now. especially with the price of seed is so high, and I know the price of sod is equally going up, I don't have a sense, I can talk to Eddie and find out what those numbers might be to discuss it, but. If we put sod down and kids run on it, and it's not, if it hasn't taken, then
It's gonna be
that
across.
would be. More money wasted than if the seed doesn't take.
And what does mulching it do? Mulch would ruin the ported plants?
So mulch. When the mulch grinds up against the rubber, it
Yeah.
starts to wear down the rubber. If you've been to Mitchell recently, you can see. Significant signs in it. Yeah.
Kind of,
And you can see it degrading.
yeah, it,
Yeah, and so that's why I don't want any mulch near. It, and because you can't, wherever you put the mulch, it's gonna end up on the board place, doesn't it? If it's inside that space.
But mud is not going to hurt. Or things, right? So we ignore them. It's not the end of the world.
And then reseed in the spring.
It is a huge priority to get the playground open as soon as possible. And if someone runs through seeded grass, oh, well, we put more grass seed in the spring. It's like, it just feels like very low priority, like to prioritize seeding. And if it's muddy, it's muddy.
And we took extra time, and I'm not faulting anybody, to get this project done. Originally, were we talking August, maybe September, this is gonna be done?
Well, that was completely the contractor, yes.
Right, so I mean, again, the factors are out of our hands. We're now looking into November and December. Now we're gonna say like, oh, hey, playground's done. When we put grass down, we want to walk on the grass.
It just feels
You
like
can't do that.
at this point. And it's. Seems very
I agree with Michelle.
unnecessary low priority.
Agreed, because we really need to get it over. I think that would be a priority of the commission.
Sounds good, I will look at it.
that's the question.
Slow down right now.
But it's not important, it's not.
We could-
No, it's not, it's not. No, you're right, it's playground.
No, it's just, I don't know.
Mhm.
You couldn't stake out around the grass enough that the kids could like. Stay off of it.
I can talk to Eddie about putting snow fencing in that orange mesh like fence, but
It's true, like, if
But
they're jumping.
they're gonna
that's their issue.
You're right.
we just
I
gotta-
don't think that's so much the issue, like in my head, the kids who are jumping the fence as a
You use the
teenager,
blades.
who want to hang out. They're not the ones who like, the people that I could see running over the grass for the little ones, and if it's blocked off, or if parents see that, then it might at least prevent, like if the cost
We'll
of.
cut down on it.
Yeah, if the cost of putting something around, at least as a visual barrier, so parents could be like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Cause again, like people are gonna scale the fence, but they're not gonna care. But being on the grass, they're gonna just wanna be on the playground.
Yeah.
Will do. We'll pass that on.
Okay. Are we looking on anything else facility wise? I mean, I know you closed down the bathrooms. There was an email that went out today that you're asking user groups, are they done? Can we start closing down fields?
Yeah, so Eddie wants to shut down the grass fields and. Because we use the blanket field permitting, some permits go that end last week, some and next week, so I just sent out a blanket, like. Please confirm that you're done, so we can start putting them to bed.
Staying on this. Hopefully it stays in the boundaries here. How is our new park ranger doing? Because if he's going around to the playgrounds and the fields and the facilities. What's the biggest things that he's seen that needs to be fixed, or what's the most common thread that either you're hearing or Eddie's hearing in regards to him going around?
The big one is trash. And I have him, I'm getting, there's a few things at Elliott and at Devasia that we need removed, so I sent him over to take pictures of them, and then now I'm gonna send them back to try to remove them. For the things that we can internally remove, that we don't have to sub out to the vendors.
What are these things you're talking about?
There are chains that are coming unattached at Elliott, like that you use the chain to climb up something, but now it's unattached at the bottom, so it becomes. So we're gonna remove those. So it just won't have that. it'll just
Okay.
Cut off the top, so it comes off. So things like that, when he was walking the trail at the reservoir, he talked to a woman who had slipped on the mud. And so forward that conversation to Eddie and Karis to talk about like, is there anything we can do, because we're gonna hit the rainy season, it's going to get money, what can we do? And what do we wanna do before the winter versus after the winter? So those kind of things, I see him out and about all the time. And joyous.
It's so nice.
It's very nice. He
Um,
has no complaints, yeah, so far so good.
how's his interaction with other town, like, employees? Like, does he have much?
Yeah, I mean, he started off the day at DPW,
Yeah.
at PSAP, so he has a bunch of interaction over there, and then he's out in the fields and. You know, he basically does 2 rounds per day where he'll go out at noon-ish, check all the fields, make sure everything's the way it's supposed to be before people start going on them, and then he goes out and publics there and sort of. Tries to keep it the way it started.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
And right now, it's, you know, it's fairly, I wouldn't say it's easy, but there's not a lot going on, so he can manage that sort of thing. In the spring, when we really get up and running with all the fields, it'll be not as simple, so he'll focus on like, okay, these 3 fields, I'm gonna do the before and after, and then these 3 fields before and after.
Do you think he will help in regards to if we go into the spring season of field closures? Like, I know Eddie and Doug and his crew can't be everywhere, neither can you, like, if he's out and about, will he be able to
Certainly,
communicate, like,
it is part of Doug's,
perfect? I think that's
because
great.
then in the winter, he'll be doing the ice as well,
Oh, perfect.
him and another person. To be named, but you're not allowed to do it all alone. Go out on the ice.
His hours on Saturday, is he?
12 to 8. So it's 12 to 8, Tuesday to Saturday. In the job description, it is, we can manipulate it.
We need a little bit here.
So on the weekends, right, I mean, the idea of 12 to 8 works great during the week, but we may have to manipulate it a little, and he's very amenable to.
It just feels like on Saturdays, the dogs on fields, like that's the biggest
Mhm.
issue is the morning. And keeping dog.
Yeah, we can certainly revisit in the spring and say like, how do you feel about this? But it is an option.
The only other thing I will bring up in regards to facilities, and I know we're going into the winter season when we have nothing permitted, but in the springtime, we've got to do better at Topazio parking lot. I mean, it's back to the Wild West. People driving in the out where clearly as the sign says do not enter, people just barreling right through it.
I did have an idea for that, which I had reserved for, I don't know, for the next meeting. That I jump on that. But doing that, yeah, so I can touch on that later, but I
Sure.
definitely agree, it is absolutely, people have no idea how to navigate positive or Topazio, and it is ridiculous. We need signage, we need, I don't know if it makes sense to have a park ranger out there, just, you can just stand in one corner and just said like, keep moving, keep moving. keep
That's a
moving.
good topic for the field summit.
That is it.
Yeah.
And it's a good topic, a good idea for us to say, we're considering requiring that you pay for a
Yeah.
police officer.
Or you have a member of your team, you have a coach standing out
Well,
there.
I don't know, maybe you don't want that liability, maybe to say you need to hire a police officer, you pay for police detail.
But the crazy.
I don't know if I want Moon standing out there, because
Right.
I feel like somebody would just win.
Right, I don't, but
What if it's a
if
detail?
they have to chip in, then maybe you chip in based on how much field time you have.
But
Right?
yeah,
The more you have, the more you chip.
The more you have, the more you chip, right? I mean, there's just some things we could suggest, and this is what we're thinking about implementing, and what's your idea to the groups, because the groups have as much an interest as we do that people don't get hurt, right? We especially don't want a child to get hurt, but we don't want accidents, right? So,
well, we were there, I was there. Dropping and I would park and I take my child and I would walk them to the entrance. None of that's happening. There are 2 police cruisers parked next to the porta potties.
Not too. Yeah.
Standing there out where all of the traffic is
all the
happening,
chaos is,
nothing.
right?
There's
But if we,
chatting to each other, so clearly they weren't on each other. Clearly, it wasn't a problem enough for them to say anything. It was crazy. The whole parking lot backed up past the Great Plain. And unnecessary.
so I'm very much in favor of asking the groups to pay for police detail. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. You chip in and if it means you have to increase your fees, but we can't have this go, it's dangerous, right? So
Yeah.
No,
And once,
agreed.
now that we know about it, we're part of the problem if we don't try to fix it, so.
It's-
I don't know if it's every day, I don't know, or every night, I don't know if it's Saturdays only, I'm not there.
Yeah.
You folks are there, so I'm relying on, those of you who are experiencing it, I'm reluctant to drive over there at 6 o'clock or.
So you don't. Other car stuff there.
I've been reluctant to do that, I'm happy to go visit Pilsen Parks, but I'm not doing that. But why don't we say that at the Field Summit and ask for their input? I mean, who are the groups that are there, right? It's whether it's high school sports, I'm talking Dan Lee. If it's Needham soccer, Needham lacrosse, I don't know who else is there, if it's a track club.
Baseball, track, Latin.
Baseball,
There's
right?
no track, but it's-
Oh,
Of course it's not track.
We're only down. It's.
there's no comments on Sundays.
But
No. I think there's.
But I think it would
They're
be.
100% apart.
It would be helpful if we wrote this up and said, this is what we're proposing. We're proposing that you have to hire a police detail. Well, we don't hire the police detail, but you're gonna have to pay for it because we don't have any budget.
Yeah.
We should need to be clear about what's acceptable and what's not, because I think that there was discussion around whether we should consider doing the drive line, so like, we need to decide, like, are we willing to do that? Or
I think the spring, the DPW director and I talked about bringing an engineer to really look at Spazio and find out like what is the best layout, because the one that has been sort of just what we've done in the past isn't working. And so.
Well, you.
Some days,
We
some
didn't
days,
have any.
yeah, we had nothing.
There
It
was
was-
nothing, so there were no barriers, so people just went in and you would go back to your car and there were 3 cars deep sometimes, and if you were in the middle, and you were stuck.
And some part like vertical, some do it horizontal, it's just like there's no.
This was better, but now this has also distributed.
But people were not doing the stopping and dropping their kids off. They might have been doing that sometimes. This is just, that's how people think that they should navigate. You don't park anymore.
You
just
stop and drop.
sit and you
Yeah.
drop.
Well,
And so that's-
but it would have to be, I think it'd be right back that if you have more than one child, right, and you can't get out of the car. Because, right, you might have to drop, right, if you have a little, I just remember having way back, right, having 2 and one's in a carriage and the other one's 5-year-old and. Not so simple, right, because you're more severe, but so many more children in that. So so maybe there is a drive line for those people, I don't know, I don't know what. the
Well, I think that's
answer
a
is.
conversation with the engineer, like, is it possible to put in a drive line, because I think it would be helpful. But I don't want it backing up the rest of everything else, so that's where somebody with a whole different brain can figure out that lot, because I cannot.
But don't we wanna talk, if we're doing the field summit in January, don't we wanna talk to the
I'll talk
group?
to, yeah, I'll talk to,
We may have to be from the town engineer before that. Because it's quick for turning things around engineering, but they're not sitting around their hands, but.
they are not busy.
Right, exactly, I know they're very busy, but I think we need to address it. And ask them the solutions, I mean, maybe.
Well, and Karis wants to be involved in it too, because, they also need the parking lot and they also need to have access to it, and
She's welcome to the field summit.
That would be a separate one, I don't think.
The parking lot is just a dumping ground. for cars. That's all of it. There's,
Oh, okay.
cruisers, there's. It
Old
is.
beat up dump trucks.
For the town vehicles.
Yes.
Vehicles that have not moved and that have flat tires, and that's all, there's like 60 to the left, to the
Really?
right.
Yep.
Pumping station.
Mhm.
Yep, it's just, now they have do not enter signs. And
Oh.
they're using the barricades to not allow.
So we need to talk to
access through.
Karen.
It's just- It looks like an old.
Junkyard?
Yeah,
Junkyard.
that's,
An old car.
yeah, that's the word.
But
Well-
what is your idea that you said, you have an idea, you're gonna hold on to it until next week?
Oh,
no,
no,
it's
it was science, like, it was ingenious.
Yeah.
No, it's more like, we need something that's just in that turn here that enforces.
build an
Like
underground.
no idling, no stopping, no active driving, or something. It wasn't. anything.
Maybe you
Or
could
chat.
ask, like,
I do have signage on my list of things.
Yeah.
While we're on the subject of the phasio, I just want to let you know that they are looking to take out barriers this week.
It's fine. That's
Cause there's not a lot going on, and so now is the time where
It's
there's.
the snow on the ground too.
I do have to say, the parking lot itself has looked great, like, there's been a couple of times where it's
Actually,
not
yeah, it has.
really bad, but it's really.
The junkyard, that's good.
Yeah,
Other
yeah,
than
the junk-
that,
the junk-
Now we
that
have.
was not our fault.
I think it is, but-
Really bad.
Alright,
All right, went down that rabbit hole. Anything else in regards to playgrounds and facilities? All right, on to the next one, action items. For approval. Go ahead.
I don't know, I don't think it's that for that all. It's just about the action part, you talked about CPC, but you had submitted a permit for the recommendation around the feasibility study. I think that that's what the meeting was referring to.
so that, I did submit that as a capital,
And there's no, so that.
There's no
that's submitted,
decision.
There's no decision.
there's no decision, and ask the question,
Pending.
yes, all of it's pending, it was just suggested that we go to CPC for the top.
You got it, okay.
25,000. What's the amount that's in big? Yeah.
I think it's 50.
So Amy Nelson from the town is just asking if we can move the celebration that is typically at town hall to for this year and this year only. And it is not, let me think.
For the blue tree lighting.
12.
Hold on 1 second.
Who's the blue tree?
Blue tree's still there. They're actually putting the lights on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The only tree, that's all.
No, but they moved, I think they moved the Circle of Hope or whatever that was. They moved that, they're now to a Ford con.
Wait, so we're gonna be at Queen's Fields, but.
Yes.
Santa is
Yeah,
gonna come to
but-
Greenfield. Santa is not gonna come to town.
So are we lighting a tree? No, I was a little.
They,
confused.
I
Last
think
year
they are lighting a tree. They're asking to get a tree.
At Queen Bridge, so we will have a blue tree. at
We will have a
Queen's
blue tree. That is just the request, obviously, is just for this year, or.
Field. For as long as the common is out of commission.
No, I heard frankly along with that every day. I see
They
what is there. It does, yes.
So this, yeah, I can see no concerns. I didn't do a write-up, this, but I did put in the full request.
I would make a motion that we approve the special event request for the blue tree lighting at Queen's Field. I think it is December 3rd.
As noted.
All right, I have a motion. Do we have a second? Right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those who want to approve the request for the lighting of the, or a blue tree at Greensfield on December 3rd, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Fantastic,
We do not have any fee approvals, so we can go right to the meeting minutes.
all right. Scrolling down to the bottom.
I would make a motion, Mr. Chair, if I may, to approve the minutes of our meeting of October 26, 2022. Well, written minutes are signed.
I have a motion, go ahead, second.
Yeah. I second.
All right. Any further discussion on the minutes of the meeting of October 26th? All right, hearing none, all those who are in approval say aye. Aye, passes unanimously. All right, let's go back up to the top.
Topics.
Topics for future meetings. Michelle, anything?
No, I already covered
I
mine.
know you already covered that one.
Signage.
Signage. I heard there was, the group has already been determined for the,
Active recreation group.
yes, active recreation
That
group.
is correct.
That I know Fred and Michelle, nice. Who else is on,
Warn it,
And to go over.
yeah.
who else is on from the other town? Like, who do we get from the finance committee? Do we know?
For John Connolly.
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I can find out. I'm meeting with Katie tomorrow. I can find out. the list.
Just, I mean, just to look at people, like, I know most of it. I know Marcus is gonna be part of it. Mary Ann, so.
Okay.
Cool.
I think,
It's
so,
always helpful to know, like, when the meetings are.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
that's,
How often, like, during the day, during the.
Busy during the day.
I don't know, we don't have.
Okay, so I'll find out. and let you know.
Yeah, just to know.
I think along, who's carrying that? Who's- well, this one. So it will be Mary Ann Marcus, right, whoever the. Great.
I think we need to be very heavily involved since it is our parcel of land that we would be looking at.
We're looking at all of them.
Yes, all the parcels,
I feel like they would be happy with that.
definitely. Okay, anything else for topics for future meetings?
Can we make sure that the field summit has some prominence for next time so that we can talk about what topics? we
And
want,
fees, we're thinking about doing.
Right. Yes.
All right, no issues from the chair within 48 hours. Next meeting we have is Monday the 28th, and then we only have one in December, and then we're off to the new year.
I'm gonna have to adjust one in March, but like we can deal with that later. I was looking at my calendar. I have a conference that I'm now the vice president for and helping to run the conference, so I have to do that.
Any tropical destination that could be in or no?
Norwood, Massachusetts.
In
March.
It's tropical that it is.
Watch out.
Wow.
The 4 points on the auto mile, Route 1.
Wow.
He's staying over.
Yeah, I
Yes.
have to, it feels ridiculous.
Same with
but I have
Chair.
to.
All right. I can't think of anything else. I know after, before next meeting, I want everyone to have a great Thanksgiving, which is next Thursday. Hope everyone gets to spend time with friends and family and do everything that they want to do on that nice day. Hopefully weather is permitting that my deep fried turkey doesn't go to shame. So I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Anything else?
Same to you.
All right, I will entertain a adjourn of the meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second? You pick. All right, all those in favor of adjourn the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.